Last night, I got to see the Chainsaw Rize movie, and I have a lot of things to talk about. First off, I want to talk about the movie, talk about how great it was. It was amazing. I went to go see the Demon Slayer movie, and I thought that movie was also absolutely fantastic. But this Chainsaw Man movie just hit so hard for me. The opening was amazing. The Iris Out opening was absolutely amazing. I don't know if that's gonna be the season two opening or that's just for the movie, but it was absolutely fantastic. The animation was absolutely out of this world. The entire moments with Denji and Rize was animated so beautifully. And my favorite highlight of the movie, with just the animation went crazy, was anytime the Bond Devil was like flicking her hand, anytime Rize was flicking her stuff and then just blowing stuff up, absolutely amazing. When she was moving in like the accelerated speed, like especially the moment where she kept punching Beam in multiple different sections, absolutely fantastic. And of course, the Typhoon Devil moment with Denji and Beam going up the Typhoon, it was absolutely fantastic. The music as well. People, if you haven't seen the movie yet, everyone's going to talk about how great the music is, how great the set pieces are, where they were doing orchestral pieces. Absolutely fantastic. But the main thing I want to talk about from this movie is that it made me want to reread part one again, just to talk more about this city mouse, country mouse idea. The whole time that Chainsaw Man part one and part two is all about the city mouse and the country mouse. Which one do you prefer? And I wanted to go on a little talk about it. I made a community post yesterday whenever the movie came out after I finished watching it, about just thinking back to this whole city mouse, country mouse idea, and how the entire story of Chainsaw Man is about this, and how Denji is a living paradox of that idea, of that fable. And I just want to talk about it. So this is just gonna be me rambling about it. I will be talking about part one almost in its entirety, just like stuff I wanted to talk about just to add context to the whole fable. But also, I'm going to be talking about part two. I will leave a spoiler part for that in the on the screen or in the description, so that you don't get spoiled if you don't want to hear about me talk about part two stuff, because I will be talking about spoilers for part two. So you don't have to worry about spoilers. If you haven't got to that point, you can just skip off, and I appreciate watching the video. But let's get into it. Let's get into this ramble. The main thing about the Rize arc is, would you rather be the city mouse or the country mouse? The city mouse is that you get to live in a city with all the food, all the freedom, all the ideas and perfection that you want in life. But the one thing that takes away from that perfection is that you can die at any time. You can lose your life at any time. The country mouse is that your life is, you are safe for the rest of your life, but you don't have good food and you're just chilling the rest of your life, but you're happy. That's one thing they do say, is that you are happy. With both ideas, you're actually happy with both. Like, you are happy. But the country mouse is just that you're gonna be more into that chill life. Like, there's no danger, but also there's like no excitement. And the point of this fable is that it's asking us, what would you rather do? Would you rather be the country mouse that is, you never go outside, you never go to parties, you never go out to hang out with friends, you never go and take risk, but you're always safe because it's just you. You're never in danger because there's no random inconvenience or random part of a problem that can just happen to you and you can lose your life. But you don't grow past that. You don't get like to new heights and stuff like that. There's no risk, but you're always safe. Or would you rather be the city mouse, where there's a lot of risk? There's a lot of risk. You can go to these parties and then something terrible could happen. You could lose your life, or you even just driving. You even just driving your car, and accidents are one of the big ways that people die. And I live in America, but you're out and about. You're doing things that you love to do. So that's the story that Fujimoto, the fable, is basically throwing to us. Is that, what would you rather prefer? And the main thing that interested me the most was how this relates to Denji, and how all of part one and part two is about this. Let's even talk about the Rize arc. So in the Rize arc, we learn about the country mouse and the city mouse philosophy. And Denji says that they would choose the city mouse. Now, for Denji, this makes sense. For some people, you would wonder why he would pick the city mouse, because he's been through slavery, he's been through literally death multiple times, has been killed and brought back to life. He's also gone through great loss by losing his parents and having to deal with the ramifications of the fact that he's constantly going to gain friends and lose friends. In part one so far, we haven't gotten to that point yet, like has happened later on in part one, but he's gonna have to deal with that loss from him choosing the city life, being the city mouse. And you would think for someone that has experienced that much loss, they would want to go to the country mouse so that they're always safe. But I disagree. I feel like when you hit rock bottom like that in life, you're always going to choose the city mouse perspective, because what more do you have to lose but only to gain? And for some people, they could say their life, I could lose my life. But for some people, they've already reached the worst part in life that it doesn't matter if they die. Even in the movie, we hear this from Angel. Angel is telling Aki to let him go. Like, let me go. I'm already been wanting to die. Like, this is just my time. Like, you don't have to save me. And then Angel was shocked when Aki literally gave up 2 months of his life by touching him for literally 2 seconds to save him. And then Angel asks, why would you do that? And then Aki's just like, I don't want to die. Like, he even says, like, you touching me is going to make you die. Why do you want to die? And he says, I don't want to die, but I'm just tired of watching people die in front of me. And moments like that are examples of people that have reached the worst in their life, that they just don't want to keep living a life where they're just going to be safe at that point. They want to live a life where, like, if they're here for a short time, they want that life to be a great time. And I feel like Denji is another example of that. He's a person that has gone through the things we talked about, and he's already hit that rock bottom, but he doesn't want to just settle anymore. He's just like, yo, I can't die. In the beginning of part one, he doesn't think about the ramifications of the fact that he can't die. He doesn't think about the fact that, oh, I can't die, but everyone around me can still die, which he'll learn more about at the end of part one and part two. But he's thinking in his head, like, I've already reached rock bottom. I just want to go up from here. Like, if my life is temporary, I just want to make sure that I'm eating all the great food I can, seeing all the beautiful women I can. And that's how he feels right now. But for someone like Rize, she lived that city mouse life technically her whole life. Because remember, she was a secret agent, a secret, like, orphan worker that was part of the Russian government. And she was constantly raised in, like, that secret room to, like, train herself, kind of like Black Widow in the Marvel movies and the Marvel comics, very similar. And she's constantly been in that environment. And so at the end of the story, at the end of the movie, you see that she actually chooses the country mouse. Like, she decides to want to be with Denji and to run away somewhere. But technically, she chose the city mouse in that perspective, because the country mouse was going to be if she went on that train and just went back to Russia. The city mouse is that she took that risk to go back to see Denji, to go to a country mouse life, which is just, once again, like, I'm like thinking about it and talking about it, just makes me so happy. Just like, man, I wish I want to reread part one again, because Fujimoto, that multi-layered thinking on this fable and how the whole story takes place in between that is absolutely fantastic. But when I was thinking about that, it made sense why Denji would choose that. Like, for me personally, I don't know about y'all. In the comment section, you can talk about it if you want to, but I haven't been through tremendous loss. I still have both my parents. I still have loving parents. I haven't gone through anything bad with my parents, and I've lived a comfortable life. In terms of my mom and my dad sacrificed a lot for me to be able to go to school, have food on the table, and still play the games that I like and stuff like that. They didn't have to worry about me being outside like that unless I was going to my friend's house, because I was always playing the game or doing my schoolwork and stuff like that. So for me personally, I'm satisfied. I'm a person that's satisfied. I don't need to have that city mouse life in general, because I'm already satisfied and happy with my life and I know where it's going. But my past determined how I feel about that type of stuff. For people that have gone through that type of loss, they might think that, like, my life is already at rock bottom, I might as well just, like, live it out to the fullest, even though there's more risk of me losing my life. And I understood that. Like, this movie made me draw those comparisons, not between just the characters, but also just me, myself, and Denji, and Aki, and Angel, and stuff like that. That's another thing I loved about the movies, that it just made you think about that. But let's go talk about more about Denji and his whole dilemma, right? Like I said earlier, Denji's whole thing is that he cannot die. he's going through struggles where like it feels like he's almost about to die or they're about to steal his heart, but objectively he cannot die. If he has blood, he will just come back to life. And you've noticed that later on in the story. So I'm gonna get into some spoilers for part one. If you've already read all of part one, then you don't have to worry, and then I'll leave another spoiler warning for part two. But if you have not read all of part one and you just watched the movie, thank you guys for watching up to this far. But I'm gonna start getting into like later stuff. We're gonna start getting into bigger spoilers. So let's talk about the loss of Denji's friends. So let's talk about Aki. Let's talk about Power. So with Aki and Power, right? Those are the first people where he really has family. He even talks about it in this movie when Rize asks him to like leave with her. He says, I can't because I'm finally starting to like make my superiors proud, aka Makima, and I'm Aki, and then I also technically have family that I just don't want to leave, which is Power and Meowie and technically Aki. That his life is hard. His life sucks. He has to go out constantly killing devils. He didn't get to go to elementary school like like Rize and Denji talk about. But his life was hard. But his life feels so good right now, and there's risk of like him dying because he lives that city mouse lifestyle. But his life, he's happier than he's ever been in his life. Like if you don't know, remember Denji went through slavery. He literally went through like going around killing devils with just Poshita, not having an eye. Like he's been through terrible things, and we go into more details about his whole relationship with his father and how he accidentally, I'm not gonna talk about that, but stuff that happened with his father. So he's been through a lot. Like his only friend was Poshita for literally years. So that's like one of the things that brings more into his perspective and more things about the environment. Your environment can determine a lot about how you feel, how you act, and how you perceive information. That doesn't mean it controls you 100%. That doesn't mean that like everything you do will be determined by your environment, but for a lot of your perspective on things in life, your environment will determine that. That doesn't mean you can be controlled by it, like I said, but it means that a lot of how you feel is going to be impacted by that. So it makes sense why Denji feels the way he feels. In his head, he's thinking, I'm Chainsaw Man, I can't die. All my life I was scared about dying because I had to go through all these terrible things. So I can't die. So I'm always going to pick that city mouse lifestyle because what's the risk? And then he learns through part one and part two, the risk is that you might not be able to die, but everyone around you can die. Aki literally gets controlled by the gun devil and becomes the gun fiend. And Makima's the reason that all happened. But that happened to him. He loses power by the one person in his life that he thought was on her side that actually looked at him for him. Remember, in his head, Denji is looking at Makima sexually because, he is a young male that is being groomed by an adult woman that he's obviously attracted to. But also, he looks at her in a way because it feels like she's the only one that can understand him. And I feel like the one reason that Makima is able to understand him is because, one, she's a devil, which he doesn't know at the time. But she's also kind of felt the same experiences that Denji has. Like, throughout the beginning of the movie, we see that, Denji is running into a dilemma. It's like where he's like, do I have a heart? Like, am I actually like a good person? And that's something he deals more with in part two. Like, is he actually a good person? But him being told by Makima that he's a good person, and in his head, Makima's the only person that kind of like understands him, that in his head, Makima's perfect. So if Makima's telling him that he is a person with a heart, then he does have a heart. Like, Denji really relies in part one off that outward support, that reassurance from Makima that he's not weird or crazy. It is funny though, thinking in context of part one, that if Makima of all people is telling you you're not crazy, then you are crazy, because she is a little crazy. But it's a very interesting mindset to have, and a very interesting thing to think about when you read all of Chainsaw Man in entirety, and you think about the fact that Denji is coming to the terms of the risk of him not being able to die and everyone else being able to die. It's kind of the dilemma with immortality. Like, a lot of people don't want to die. Like, we all gonna die someday, but a lot of us don't want to die. But you also got to think about the fact that what if you have immortality? Like, immortality can sound terrible if you're the only one with immortality, because you're gonna watch everyone you ever loved die. And so that's the whole city mouse, country mouse thing that Fujimoto is talking about, which is just very, very interesting. But we go through part one. Denji loses friends, loses his family, has to make very, very tough choices, and he ends up winning by beating Makima. But in the end, did he really win? Because he lost his family. But him beating Makima gained him new family in Nayata. So we're gonna start going into part two a bit. So if you haven't read part two, or you're not caught up, like, don't, like, stop here. Like, once again, thank you guys for watching the video, but we're gonna stop here for now, so you don't get spoiled. But in part two, Denji's living a new life. He is at school, which is very, very interesting. Rereading part one, rereading part two, and then watching the movie for Rize, is that he goes to school, and his interactions with Rize really changed how Denji thinks, because he went to school. He wants to go to school. He never got to go to school, and when Rize was talking about, like, man, like, you never got to go to school, that sucks. Like, it means a lot to Denji to actually be able to go to school and have a family to go home to and be Chainsaw Man. But it's very sad, because I was thinking about when Rize was dying, one of her reasons for why she chose to run back to Denji was that she was honest that she didn't go to school too, because remember, she was also an orphan that was put into that the Russian room where she had to train and fight for her life. So she sees a lot of herself in Denji. She sees a lot of herself in terms of, like, we're really the same. Like, and this is how Denji feels about Makima, but he doesn't know that he's technically wrong. Him and Makima are totally nowhere close to being the same. But it's very, very interesting and very, very sad to think about. Like, I remember when it was at the end of the movie, I almost shed a tear, because I was just like, man, that really, really sucks, man. But with part two, he is living this double life where he basically is Chainsaw Man, but also a kid, a student kid, and is living kind of that country mouse lifestyle that he wanted to live at the end of part one, after having to go through all that stuff with Makima. And you see that it's affecting his life, because one, he's motivated to become Chainsaw Man by Nayata, you know, his new family, and is excited to be Chainsaw Man. But also, Nayata in herself is restricting the way that Denji can interact with women, which, you know, that makes sense. She's like literally his younger sister. Like she doesn't want her older brother being with random women, and also, to be honest, she also wants her control over Denji. She wants all of Denji's attention, besides the fact that she's controlled her. But also, she's just a little girl. Like, you know, as a little girl or a child, you want your parent or your siblings' attention. You want that attention, and it's not malicious. It's just like, that's your only family, and you want your family's attention. And Nayata, it believes that Denji's the only person that can see Denji for who she is. Like, even at the beginning of the relationship, in the flashbacks, you see that Nayata was actually looking at Denji to, like, basically find a way to like control him, but then realize that, like, wow, like, he's a great person, and, like, actually really respects and loves me for who I am. So that's just one thing that we learned with Nayata that adds to, like, the city lifestyle. Like, technically, Nayata is both the city mouse and the country mouse lifestyle for Denji, because she enables his city mouse lifestyle, but also is technically the country mouse lifestyle that he's working towards that he thinks that he wants. And throughout part two, he comes through the dilemma of realizing that, oh man, I want that country mouse, but I really, really, really love being Chainsaw Man. I really love being the city mouse, and has to run through that dilemma whenever things like Hirofumi is giving Denji those ultimatums where it's like, yo, choose being Chainsaw Man, which is the city mouse, or be the country mouse. And if you choose the city mouse, you will have great ratifications. And Denji really, really wants to choose the country mouse lifestyle, and does it for a bit for Nayata, for his sake and just the safety of everybody. But he realizes that he just can't do it. Like, he just can't go back to that in his mind, boring lifestyle. Like, I don't think it's a boring lifestyle. Me personally, I already told you I want to be a country mouse person, but I can see how a person has gone through the worst of the worst. He just can't handle just being a country mouse without being Chainsaw Man, without being city mouse, without having that danger. But then he also feels the ramifications of that danger by losing Nayata. Like, literally, Nayata dying because of his inability to stay a country mouse. There were some outside things outside of his perspective that kind of caused that, such as Barum. You know, Barum's literally the one that did it and was hunting down Chainsaw Man in the first place, so maybe that was gonna happen regardless. But if you think about the symbolic version of the events, him choosing the country the City Mouse lifestyle in general, it kind of leads up to that moment where like that was gonna happen anyway. But it's very interesting to think about when you go back to the story, because there are moments in part two where Denji does not transform into Chainsaw Man for a long time. Because at the end of the day, part two is Asa Mataka's story. But there's a moment where we switch back to Denji throughout part two, and he doesn't turn to Chainsaw Man for a minute until that moment where that house is on fire, and then he sees Poshita, and then he turns into Chainsaw Man and smiles at Poshita because he's so happy that he gets to do that City Mouse lifestyle. One of my favorite chapters. That was such a great chapter, reading it to that every week and getting to that point. But anyway, he also felt the immediate ramifications of that, because right after that, you know, Naita like literally dies, and Denji also gets messed up in that fight because he had to fight all the weapons devils, and then also had to fight Barum, and then had to also deal with the general population as well. Very hard story, very very hard life, and we learn more about the situations after that where Denji's dealing with the fact that like, wow, me being selfish and me wanting to be Chainsaw, me wanting to live a City Mouse lifestyle killed my only family that I have left, and goes back into the whole mindset of the City Mouse, Country Mouse lifestyle. But that's what I was thinking about. This is all I gotta say for now. I'm probably gonna drop another video soon, just talking more and more about Denji's paradox. But this was like what I was thinking about after watching the movie, and then just thinking about Chainsaw Man again. It was just very, very interesting. And looking through Chainsaw Man Part 1 and Part 2 with this mindset of the City Mouse versus the Country Mouse lifestyle, and what happens to Denji from choosing the City Mouse lifestyle, it's very interesting. And I think I'm understanding what Fujimoto is trying to tell us. That doesn't mean that, like, one thing I'll leave the video off is I don't think Fujimoto is saying that, oh, we shouldn't choose the City Mouse lifestyle and you should just be a Country Mouse person and be stuck in the same place all the time. I think what he's saying is that they both have their drawbacks, and you as a person, you should be able to pick which one you want to be. You should be able to pick if you want to be a City Mouse or you want to be a Country Mouse, and you should be happy in both. If you're happy at being a City Mouse, you should stay a City Mouse. Like, there's more risk, but you're gonna be happy. And if you're fine being a Country Mouse, then you should be happy staying a Country Mouse. And that doesn't mean that if you're one or the other, you can't also dwell into both of them. Like I said throughout the story, characters go into both. Like, Denji literally does both things. Like, him wanting to leave with Rize is him trying to be a Country Mouse. There's risk, but he's at the end of the day trying to settle and be a Country Mouse. Him staying with Naita and not being Chainsaw Man is moments of him wanting to be a Country Mouse. The whole Rize not going on the train is her being a City Mouse by taking that risk. But at the end of the day, she was trying to be a City Mouse so that she can lead to a Country Mouse lifestyle. So it's very, very interesting. And all of us can do those things. All of us can be both of those things. And that's the main thing I want to leave this video off of, is that you can be a City Mouse or a Country Mouse. You just need to pick which one you prefer more and which lifestyle you will be happy with more. But also, you can always delve into the other mouse. You can always go and be a City Mouse and then return back to a Country Mouse, or be a City Mouse and return to a Country Mouse and then go back. It's just do the most that will make you happy, no matter the risk or cost. But thank you guys for watching the video. Leave a like, subscribe to see more content like this, and hit that bell. I definitely want to post more. I definitely want to post more. I've been busy with a lot of my school and work, but I definitely want to try and make more videos like this where I just ramble and have gameplay in the background. I would love to have pages of the chapters or clips from the anime, but like, I'm just not gonna deal with that copyright stuff anymore. It's just too much. But I really thank you guys for watching the video. If you haven't seen Chainsaw Man and you listen to me ramble about all these spoilers, thank you. But go watch Chainsaw Man. Go read Chainsaw Man. It's amazing. Go watch the movie before it leaves theaters, because it's kind of a limited showing where they're not having a lot of showings like they did for Demon Slayer. So go watch it. It's fucking amazing, and I love Chainsaw Man. But I'm gonna see you guys later. Peace.